Once upon a time, in the small, sleepy town of Willowbrook, there was an old but sturdy Jeep Cherokee XJ. This Jeep wasn't just any vehicle, it was a legend. Its forest green paint had faded over the years, and its body bore the scars of countless adventures. It belonged to Mr. Anderson, an adventurous soul who had explored every nook and cranny of the surrounding wilderness. The Cherokee XJ was known affectionately as Old Green by the townspeople. Children would often gather around Old Green in Mr. Anderson's garage, listening wide-eyed to the tales of its heroic exploits. But as time went on, Mr. Anderson grew older, and the Jeep was driven less and less, until it became a dusty relic of the past. One summer, a young boy named Max moved to Willowbrook with his family. Max was a curious and imaginative child with a passion for adventure. On his first day in the new town, Max wandered into Mr. Anderson's garage. There, covered in a layer of dust, stood Old Green. Max's eyes lit up with excitement as he ran his hand over the Jeep's rugged exterior. Mr. Anderson noticed Max's fascination and smiled. "Ah, I see you've met Old Green. This Jeep has seen more adventures than you could ever imagine," he said. Max's eyes widened. "Can you tell me about some of them?" Mr. Anderson chuckled. "How about I show you instead? I think it's time for Old Green to have one last great adventure." Max could hardly contain his excitement. Mr. Anderson handed him the keys, and together they spent the next few days preparing the Jeep. They changed the oil, checked the tires, and filled the tank with gas. Old Green roared to life, its engine purring with a deep, reassuring rumble. One bright Saturday morning, Max and Mr. Anderson set out on their journey. Their destination was the mysterious Black Bear Mountain, a place shrouded in legend and intrigue. Many believed it to be home to hidden treasures and ancient secrets. The road to Black Bear Mountain was long and winding, with treacherous cliffs and dense forests. As they drove, Mr. Anderson shared stories of Old Green's past adventures. Max listened intently, his imagination running wild with images of daring escapes and heroic rescues. As they ascended the mountain, the terrain grew rougher. Rocks and fallen trees littered the path, but Old Green tackled each obstacle with ease. Max marveled at the Jeep's agility and strength. They crossed rickety bridges, forded rushing streams, and navigated narrow ledges with sheer drops on either side. The higher they climbed, the thicker the fog became. Visibility was reduced to mere feet, and the air grew cold and damp. Suddenly the engine sputtered and the Jeep came to a halt. Max's heart sank. Had their adventure come to an abrupt end? Mr. Anderson remained calm. "It's just a minor setback, Max. Old Green's been through worse." He got out and opened the hood, tinkering with the engine. After a few tense moments, the Jeep roared back to life. Max breathed a sigh of relief. They continued their ascent, and as the sun began to set, they reached a plateau near the summit. There, amidst the fog, stood the entrance to an ancient cave. Legends spoke of a hidden treasure buried deep within its labyrinthine tunnels. Armed with flashlights and a sense of adventure, Max and Mr. Anderson ventured into the cave. The air inside was cool and damp, and the sound of dripping water echoed through the darkness. They followed the winding passages, their footsteps muffled by the thick layer of dust on the ground. After what felt like hours of wandering, they stumbled upon a massive chamber. In the center stood a stone pedestal, and atop it, a chest covered in intricate carvings. Max's heart raced with anticipation. They approached the chest and carefully lifted the lid. Inside, they found a trove of ancient artifacts, coins, jewelry, and scrolls, all glistening in the dim light. But their excitement was short-lived. The ground beneath them began to tremble, and rocks started to fall from the ceiling. The cave was collapsing. Max and Mr. Anderson grabbed as much treasure as they could carry and sprinted back through the tunnels, the walls shaking around them. They emerged from the cave just as the entrance collapsed behind them. Gasping for breath, they made their way back to Old Green. The fog had lifted, revealing a breathtaking view of the surrounding mountains and valleys. As they descended Black Bear Mountain, Max couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. They had uncovered a piece of history and shared an adventure that he would never forget. Old Green had proven once again that it was more than just a Jeep. It was a gateway to extraordinary experiences. When they returned to Willowbrook, they were greeted as heroes. The townspeople gathered around, eager to hear about their adventure. Max and Mr. Anderson shared their story, and Old Green stood proudly, a symbol of courage and exploration. From that day on, Max and Mr. Anderson continued to embark on new adventures with Old Green. They explored hidden valleys, discovered forgotten ruins, and even helped rescue lost hikers. Each journey brought them closer together and reinforced the bond between them and their trusty Jeep. And so the legend of the Jeep Cherokee XJ lived on, inspiring generations of adventurers in the small town of Willowbrook. Old Green had found a new purpose, not just as a vehicle, but as a vessel of dreams and endless possibilities. The spirit of adventure thrived, and Max knew that as long as they had Old Green, there would always be new horizons to explore. The end.